Welcome back, Scratchers. We now have a fairly full-fledged game where we can fly, fire bullets, explode other planes, but our background, this ocean of just straight blue as far as the eye can see, maybe it's time to liven that up a little bit. And one of the ways we can do that is by using some of these island sprites to create the illusion that we're flying over islands. Let's pick one of those. And you can open it up and look, we only have one script in there, which is to hide the original. Now an island is going to behave very much like our planes. We want them to move down from the top of the screen. If we want to have more than one on screen at any given time, we're going to use clones. This is going to be a very similar kind of code. And in fact, we can take this existing code and drop it on top of our island sprite. See how it wiggles when we get right over the top? And I'm just going to take these two scripts and drop them there. Now if we go back to that island, which previously only had this script, now has this script and this script in it as well. Now we do want to tweak these to make sure they make sense for an island. So when I start as a clone, I want to be at the top of the screen. That's what this line does. I want to appear. And I want to move down the screen until we hit the bottom of the screen. And that's what this repeat until is doing in combination with this change y by. Now this particular script right here, this if statement, if we're touching P38, is what destroys the enemy planes. Well, you're not actually going to be destroyed when a plane flies past us. And the same thing, we don't want to interact with bullets. So we can actually just take that code out completely. And now we should have islands. You notice they move at the same speed as our plane. That's really a little fast. Let's go ahead and crank that down because these islands are, at least in theory, very low below us, and so they should be moving much more slowly. Kind of like when you're in a car and you look out a window at something very distant, it seems to move much more slowly in relation to you. Now there's another problem you'll notice is that these planes are actually flying underneath the island. And that's not really what we want. Now if we go to the looks menu, we have to scroll down a little ways, but we'll notice that there is this idea of layers. We can go to the back layer, the front layer, or we can adjust which layer we're on. Layers are a way of stacking sprites. You can think of each sprite as potentially being on its own layer, and you can move them up or down in those layers so that they appear to be above or below another sprite. So let's just go ahead and make sure that we are actually not going forward. Let's go to the back layer. So we're going to go to the very bottommost layer to make sure that everything else is above us if we're an island. Now on the other hand, if you wanted to go back and add clouds and cloud sprites, you might want some of those to be above your planes. And you could even have the plane flying between layers of clouds, so have some clouds beneath, some clouds above. There's a lot of cool things that we can do with this approach. All right, and then once we've done that, we can go ahead and run that again, and we should see our islands move much more slowly, and our planes fly over the top of them like we would expect. Now, the other thing we'll probably want to tweak is how quickly we spawn new islands. We are flying over an ocean, so we wouldn't expect there to be a lot of islands. We can go ahead and tweak this to be a little more rare for an island to show up. And the other thing you may have noticed with those islands, now that they're rare, we're not seeing them as much. Let me go ahead and pull that out and we'll just let it go every second for a moment. Notice that all the islands are in the same orientation. And that is not really very realistic. So the other thing we might do is come up to our motion menu and find our rotation blocks. We have turn clockwise and turn counterclockwise by a number of degrees. I can just take one of those and drop it into when I start as a clone and use another random number generated to basically say pick a random direction, maybe between 1 and 360, which is a full rotation. So now every island will be some random amount of rotation. And you can see now that they don't look like they're all in the same orientation anymore. It gives us a little more realism. And we can then go back and add back in our random numbers so that they slow down on how quickly they spawn. So we just don't have as many islands. And there's our first one. And you can adjust these numbers, play with them until you get to a point you'd like for your particular game. But that adds a little bit more vermicitude. We can go ahead and copy those scripts into these other islands, maybe tweak their values so they're more frequent or more rare. But you can really build out an interesting looking ocean by following those techniques.